Oh, now my hair is all messed up. Wait, how did that happen? What? Hang on. I can fix this. Ah, much better. Holy shit. Whew. So I just finished the setup. This from the EG offices. You might be able to tell that I'm not in my normal place. Are you wearing pants right now? I am actually. Oh, hello. Wait. You wanna say hi? You don't wanna say hi? Yeah, come say hi. I didn't know anyone else was gonna be here.
I heard running and was like, who's here?
Did you hear what I was saying when you passed by?
I heard about pants, but I'm gonna pretend I heard nothing.
Okay, because I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think anyone else was in the office, and I was about to like take off my pants.
Okay. Well, I won't come back.
No, well, I'm just saying. Okay, here. You should have a seat.
Is this live?
Yeah.
Oh no. Hi.
So this is Nicole. She's
I don't even know where your camera is. I'm doing great.
Yeah, no, it's good. No, you're right in the middle. This is the CEO of Evil Geniuses. And I was
and someone's taking off.
I was just about to. I just that's why I stood up, because I was like, no one else is here in the office. Oh God.
I don't know what's happening here. Good luck.
Thank you.
Have fun with the stream, everyone. I gotta go do work.
All right. Yeah.
I saw nothing.
Me too. I'm doing work. Yeah. Work.
Have fun. See ya.
All right. I had no idea she was here. That was a close one. Holy shit. Is my boss? Yeah. I mean, she's CEO, so she's like my giga boss. All right, patch notes. We're gonna start with the changes. Nami has been changed from gaining 7+ spell mana this game to level up on gaining 8+ spell mana. So obviously this is a pretty substantial nerf actually, because usually how she levels up very, very instantly on level 4 is related to the 7. This is probably a bigger change than it looks. And of course, you know, Nami being kind of like one of the decks you see a decent amount of right now. I think a little bit less than before, but still like very, very prevalent. Good nerf. Draven gets very nerfed. This is the Draven nerf people have been talking about for a while. Draven actually gets set back 1 health. So he's a 3-mana 3/2. He's Mystic Shoutable. He dies to a lot of people have been basically suggesting for many months, like almost a year now. Some people have been saying Draven should get nerfed. And this is a nerf to like a lot of different decks at once, like Scion decks, everything, literally everything that use Draven. He's still probably going to be pretty runnable. Like, you'll have to run him in decks like Scion for sure. But this is a notable nerf to like any Draven deck. He just, you know, the classic dies to Mystic Shot meme comes to mind. Tristana gets changed on level 2. Level 2 Tristana now grants herself impact as well as her allies. I don't think that's going to change too much about her. Nocturne. Level 2 Nocturne now retains Nightfall, grant an enemy vulnerable, and give allies -1 this round. Huh. Does that change anything? It only changes it if you actually play one from hand, right? And that's it? If I'm understanding that correctly. Mic check. Oh, is the mic, is there something off with the mic? Am I sounding okay? That literally changes nothing? Yeah, the Nocturne change doesn't do anything. Echo change, however, goes from you've predicted 5 times to you predicted 4 times. So Echo was, when Echo launched, it was a really weak champion. And it was definitely like kind of awkward in a lot of ways. I don't know if this is going to be a big enough change to help him out. Like Echo still feels like, I mean, let's read the rest of the changes first, but it does feel like he needed more than this. This is still notable though. Like the fact that he's leveling up earlier is going to make a difference with this card. Like Echo decks will feel less bad for sure, no matter what. Okay, Aurelion Sol goes to round 10. Your allies have 20+ total power. So fun fact, when Asol was released, he actually was released in this form. It used to be 20+ power, so they're reverting that nerf basically, which is really nice. Like Asol is a lot easier to level now. Okay, Renekton. Yeah, so far I'm gonna have to save the commentary until we like see more at the end, right? Because like a lot of these cards are contingent on other changes. So Renekton gets buffed as well. He's easier to level up, goes to 10+ damage. I think that's very fair. He was just like unnecessarily hard to level before. No huge changes yet, really. Lux goes from a 6 cost to a 5 cost. Ooh. All right, and she loses 1 point of attack in the process, but that's a very, very minor thing. The point of attack like almost doesn't matter. And Lux level 2, Final Spark can be cast directly to attack the enemy Nexus if they have no units on the field. And only if they have no units on the field. That's interesting. I mean, I guess they didn't want her destroying the Nexus, like, if there are units on the field. But yeah, that is an interesting change. I mean, overall, this is a big buff. This is probably the biggest buff we've seen so far. The fact that you can just play her on turn 5 is huge, especially because she's like a per turn engine. Ultimately, I mean, Lux still is in an awkward region for her, but this is actually, I mean, like, I'll see people experiment with Lux decks. I don't know if it'll do very well, but she feels like she's in a position where all she needs is like more support now. Quinn. So Quinn goes +1 health. Instead of a 3-4, she is a 3-5, and that's it. Does that make a difference? I mean, for the most part, she's going to be ran in scout decks. Oh, God. Wait a second. We'll get there, guys. We'll get there. I see it, too. I see it, too. She's going to be ran in scout decks. I don't think this is, like, a huge change. But she does make scout decks a bit better. Like, this extra point of health will matter a decent amount. I think, for the most part, scout decks are more reliant on just, like, the early start with, like, the MF stuff. But this will definitely matter. So, Braum gets +1 health, just casually. And Braum having +1 health is, I mean, it's definitely something that could be a little scary. So for those of you guys who don't know, I'm not super big on Braum. You know, I built like a Poro deck and I didn't run Braum in him. I don't think Braum is a super strong champion by any means. +1 health on like an early regen thing is actually pretty relevant though, or at least it can be. I still don't think Braum has any place in like more competitive environments. But I can say he's going to be like a bigger terror in areas like, for example, I mean, like anything except for like ranked, right? So like when you're looking at like the new player ranks or when you're looking at like expeditions and stuff, like Braum is going to slap in expeditions. Sparklefly keck by. Woo! Whoa! All right. Sparklefly keck by indeed. So that's just, Sparklefly is out of here. Sparklefly is out of here. Holy shit. All right, this card's done. Yeah, no, they just murdered this thing. Holy shit. This is by far the biggest change we've seen so far. This card went from an 11 to like a 4 real fucking fast. Holy shit. 3 cost is everything. Because obviously, I mean, not only is this card a lot slower and a lot clunkier now, you can't even pull it off of the Aphelios gifts anymore, right? Like, this card is basically just done. It's just out. So they've just deleted Sparklefly as a concept. And honestly, it probably did have to happen eventually. I mean, none of these changes I really disagree with. Okay, Twin Blade Revenant. Wow. Wow. Goes from Challenger to Fearsome. Holy shit. I mean, that's kind of cool. It matches with like what the Scion deck is trying to do. It makes it like more aggro and less like mid-range. I think I like this change. Overall, this is a big necessary change because Twin Blade Revenant was a little too dominant and it wasn't really being ran in the kinds of decks that like it seems to be intended for. Like, I think this is a really good change overall. It makes it like, it's still a strong card. It's more Scion-y, but it just won't be able to, you know, you're not going to be able to trigger its last breath anymore. You're not going to be able to build around it in the same way. This is a solid change. Tenor, ooh, big nerf to Tenor. And Tenor and Bass of Burden. Tenor and Base both get nerfed because, of course, they're trying to maintain parity on the numbers. So Tenor loses 1 attack and Base loses 1 health. A little too effective at enabling go white strategies, so we're bringing their stats more in line with their cost. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, these cards definitely surprised a lot of us. Like, when these cards were printed, nobody was really thinking they would be strong, and they ended up being ran in kind of every deck, actually. Like, kind of every Bandle deck. Relentless Pursuit goes to 4 cost. Okay, wow, that's a big nerf too. You now grant a target ally +1/+1. So it's like a really bad Golden Aegis, basically. For the most part, this is, yeah, you'll just run Golden Aegis over this. Wow, yeah, that's huge too. I mean, this might have been a necessary change long term. Like, I do think that cheap rallies were a little too good. And I've talked about this in the past. I've talked about, like, rally what ended up being too much of Demasia's identity. And it's not a gut. It's like, you still run Golden Aegis instead. And you're just running 3 rallies instead of, like, 5, basically. So I'm fine with that. And you might still run, like, 1 Relentless Pursuit, maybe. Tarek buff? Yeah. I mean, it is true that this can now get doubled on Tarek. I wouldn't call this a Tarek buff though. Like, Tarek decks don't they already had access to Aegis, and I don't know if you would need like too much more of this. It is technically true that it makes it a bit better with Taric, but I don't think it's enough to like change how deck building is done. Stone Stackers goes from a 2-2 tough to 2-3. Okay, so it just loses tough for a third point of health basically. So it's a straight downgrade because the tough is basically always gonna matter more than the third point of health. This is a pretty notable nerf too. It'll affect decks like the you know, the burn impact style decks that were running Stone Stackers. Aloof Traveler's big hit goes down to a 2-3. So basically, yeah, Aloof was a little too chonky for sure. This is a huge nerf. Like, Aloof Travelers was a card a lot of people were calling out. People were like, Aloof is a little too good for what it does. And I do agree. They nerfed the stats. This card might still see play. It was just that good that it can survive this, but it'll be more fringe. It'll be more of like a tech card. Aloof Kekbai. Yeah, Aloof Kekbai indeed, guys. Aloof Kekbai. Moondreamer gets a 6th point of health. Holy shit! It's a 5-3-6. All of these years, every time I see Moondreamer, in Expeditions games mostly, I'm just thinking to myself, God, if only this card had an extra point of health. If only Moondreamer was a 3-6 instead of a 3-5. Then it would be the secret to unlocking the meta. Then it would be the savior that Targon needs. And now they've finally done it. They've given it Thresh stats, guys. Holy shit. Why? Why? Yo, okay, wait. Lunari Priestess gets a 2-2, and Solari Priestess also is a 2-2. Wow. Huh. Okay, those are actually pretty relevant. I will say, yeah, actually, I think both of these changes, mostly Solari Priestess. Solari Priestess, for those of you guys who might not have played Runeterra for a minute, Targon, let me tell you a story about, a story about a region that they might not have told you. This Targon region used to be pretty good. And this Solari Priestess card was one of their good cards, you know? You just like, it just gets you whatever you need. You need a comet, gets you a comet, you know? You need like infinite value, you're traveling. Second point of attack on this is big. It makes it, instead of like, from being like a chump blocker, it actually can like block, you know, like mountain goats and stuff. Like, this is a pretty big one. Lunari Priestess, I don't know if this one's gonna matter as much. Yeah, this one still feels a little bit more fringe. Whew! Ravoon goes to 6 health. Oh god, it's happening. Oh Jesus, no. Oh no, we enjoyed it. We had a long, bountiful 4 months of no Targon. Now they're bringing it back. Okay, overall, I like the way in which they're doing this. Like, Ravoon is interesting, and we haven't really seen this. Like, we haven't seen Daybreak stuff been good in the past. I don't know if this is enough to make Daybreak stuff, but this extra point of health is big. Like, when you imagine the game playing out, this is a stat change that will basically always matter, right? Like, on turn 5, if you imagine all of the games and all the ways this could play out, the difference between a 5-5-5 and a 5-5-6 is basically always going to make things more awkward for your opponent, right? Like, almost universally. That extra point of health will have a really hard time not mattering. And this was already a pretty good card. Like, you might run this outside of, like, Daybreak decks now. This Scourge. Challenger goes to Challenger Overwhelm. Okay, so basically it just has itself Overwhelm, so it's more of a game ender now. I don't think this changes too much, but obviously it's a slight buff. Oh god, Dragon's Clutch. What are they doing? Draw 2 different dragons or Grand Dragon Allies +1/+1. Or draw 2 different dragons or Grand Dragon Allies +1/+1. And Overwhelm! Okay. Alright, so suddenly this is a pretty massive game ender. Especially with... Yeah, I mean, all the dragon units just like having like big stats and needing Overwhelm. This is potentially pretty big. Oh god, they're buffing dragons more. Ruined Dragon Guard goes to a 3/4! Oh no. Oh god. Herald. Okay, so oh shit. Let's talk about this. This is too big to not talk about. So Ruined Dragon Guard gets a pretty premium stat line on top of a very, very powerful ability, and Herald of the Dragon gets 1 point of health. Actually, I sort of can't emphasize enough how much this 1 point of health matters. It's the same thing that happened to Young Witch. You guys remember Young Witch used to be a 1/1? Suddenly, when you have like a 2 mana 1/1 that goes to a 2 mana 1/2, the fact that it no longer trades down to anything Like, it doesn't just die to a Pokestick or a Vile Feast or a lot of things. It doesn't trade down. Like, suddenly, if they Mystic Shot it, you're still fine, because you spend a 2-mana card and they spend a 2-mana card, right? Like, this is suddenly a lot harder to deal with. And, like, when you can just run Herald of Dragons, dragons get scary fast. Ruin Dragon Guard 2, this being a 3/4, and Dragon Clutch giving Overwhelm. Let's keep reading. Okay, it looks like there's no more dragons. I'll come back to those at the end, because I actually think dragons... those are big changes. I think bigger than people realize. This card was really low key, and now that it's got a 3rd point of attack, it's kind of nutty. Okay, Faces of the Old Ones goes to a 0/3. I like that. I mean, it feels a lot better. It like survives your own avalanche, which is really important. This card felt so bad in those kinds of decks because it just dies to avalanche. God. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little bit better now. I like that. I don't think it's really gonna enable any like meta decks using this though. Vanguard Sergeant also goes to a 3/4. What? Badger Bear in shambles. Wait. Demacia has 2 now. Wait. Ruined Dragon Guard is a 3-mana 3/4 that has an ability. And also in Demacia, they have Vanguard Sergeant that also is a 3-mana 3/4 with an ability. Alright, that's really funny. Yeah, overall, this is just like... So, Vanguard Sergeant... I do want to say, Vanguard Sergeant was actually a little bit of a slightly low-key card. Like, it's never really made sense in competitive constructed decks, but it's always been, like, closer than it seems. And in formats like Expeditions, like, this card has cleaned up, right? Like, it is a very valuable card, especially, like, weaker ranks. The fact that this has the Elite tag is probably the big thing for it, right? So, as a 3-mana 3/4, I don't expect this to see competitive play, although it's actually considerable now. I think people people overestimate 3-mana 3/4s. Like, they need to have good abilities to be good. But I will say, in an Elite deck, suddenly, like, Elite decks are a lot more palatable. Like, I can think about running an Elite deck and just have, like, a 3-mana 3/4 good stat line with the Elite, with, you know, a keyword that my deck is using that has a benefit. I don't think I would run this outside of Elites. I don't think that makes sense. Destin Ada. Damage deals to all enemies, now scales with darkness damage increases. Well, I do kind of love that. Holy shit. How big of a deal is that? I mean, that's pretty big, right? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of huge. That will swing a lot of matchups. It snapped. I don't know if, like, I don't know, like, I think it's a bit more niche than it looks, I think, honestly, because, you know, I mean, you still need to get, like, it mostly helps the games where your engine is already popping, and it makes it still kind of awkward when your engine isn't popping. But this is a good change. I think overall, so this is the end of the balanced patch notes. I'm gonna say this, the same thing that I say every time. In terms of thinking about the future meta, and I'll talk a little bit, and, you know, we'll talk about, like, what the implications of this are probably gonna be future meta-wise. But it looks like they are nerfing some of the top decks. They're nerfing Nami over here, and they're nerfing Draven over here, right? And, you know, obviously these are associated with some top decks. They're nerfing, yeah, Sparklefly is with the Nami stuff, and Twin Blade Revenant is nerfing a few different decks at once, like any sort of, like, Noxus value thing. And some of the Bandle stuff is coming down. Poppy decks that use Pursuit are coming down a bit. They're not getting that nerfed, actually. It's just a little bit nerfed. And, like, the Burn deck is getting nerfed. So they're nerfing a few things. But in nerfing some of the top decks, all of these buffs become more substantial, right? Okay, you guys are pointing out there's a Senna nerf in the bug fixes. Wait, is there actually, like, a legitimate nerf? This one fixed an issue where darkness could be created in hand before a cast copy is resolved. That one is actually, I don't know how big that is, but it will affect games. Right? Like, that was a pretty common thing you did with Senna in Darkness. Like, and Pranked would not target landmarks. Oh, that's big too. Yeah, that's also pretty big. Okay, cool. So, yeah, overall, these are interesting changes. I do like these changes for the most part, and we can talk about, like, what is going to happen in the meta with these. The biggest nerfs are to dragons, for sure, by far. I don't even know if Dragon's Clutches might be ran. I'm not even sure. But Rune Dragon Guard is really big buff, and Herald of Dragons is really big buff. I think Dragons might actually end up a little low key. I mean, they're nerfing some of the top stuff, and that's pretty huge. They're nerfing a lot of what Bandle does. Oh, they're not nerfing like they're not nerfing Mayor or Telescope though. That's interesting. Or like Minimorph. So Bandle, basically, they're nerfing Bandle with like a lot of some of the like value cards like Tenor and Stone Stackers and Aloof Travelers, but Bandle's still gonna have like really powerful generation and utility, right? So they wanted to keep Bandle's kind of identity. Telescope got nerfed. Oh wait, where's the Telescope nerf? Is that the end? Wait, where? Is there a bug change? System changes? What? Yeah, I mean, Loping Telescope doesn't search anything. All right, we'll have to go through everything anyway. But yeah, you guys are saying Telescope can't create itself anymore. Yeah, because it's just like cards can't create itself anymore. Is that what it was saying? Okay, so yeah. That's interesting. Paragraph under Des. Your match's full penalty tree would have activated the penalty tree first, ending the game. Now the same situation will result in a draw. So round starts are resolving. Huh. So both round starts will resolve at the same time? Wait, that's bizarre. Refresh the page because they added something? Yeah, I was gonna say, I felt like I was missing something. They actually added something. All right, here we go. Yeah. They snuck this in. I had to refresh this page. We've made rules to Trinket Trade the Traveler and Loafing Telescope. These cards will no longer be able to create themselves when played. And moving forward, additional create cards will not be able to. Okay, so this is a big change. This is actually a big change. I think I do like this overall. It didn't feel super necessary for Traveler, but it definitely felt necessary with Loafing Telescope. Okay, that is a big nerf to Loafing Telescope. It won't be able to clone itself anymore. That's huge, actually. Yeah, that's gigantic. Overall, like, Loafing Telescope is still going to be good. Bandle City Mayor is still going to be good. But they've taken away a lot of the power cards. I am a little concerned about Mayor. Like, Mayor is still just, like, a nuts card. And it feels like it'll swing games depending on, like, if it's drawn and if you can deal with it. But overall, like, Bandle's getting nerfed in a lot of other ways. It does feel like these changes are bringing things more in line with how things should be, and especially like gutting a lot of like the Nami kind of stuff. I like that they went for a smaller nerf to Nami and a bigger nerf to Sparklefly. I think that was definitely a good approach. Like, Nami is still playable, but now maybe like people will mess around with playing her in, you know, because Bandle Nami, for example, was seeing a lot of experimentation and was actually like closer to Targon Nami, at least at the start of the patch, than you might think. So overall, you know, we can talk about how the meta is going to adapt to this, right? No Minimorph nerf? Yeah, no Minimorph nerf either. Wow. So the question is, usually with updates like this, the big question is like, what still, you know, what that, oh, shit, I spilled my monster in the office. Oh, God. Okay, I've got some paper towels. Okay, no, we're good. We're good, I got it. Okay. So, Ophelio's still bad. Yeah, a lot of these changes I don't think are actually going to have like major meta impacts, like especially the buffs. It's looking like the buffs are pretty minor here. Like, I don't think Tristana Nocturne is going to change anything. Echo is unlikely. Asol will probably be better, but mostly because of the other dragon buffs and not because of him. I think Asol will actually kind of pop. But yeah, mostly because of the other dragon buffs. Renekton is a really minor buff that I don't think is going to really help. Lux is a pretty massive buff, but I think she's a little too clunky in other ways for it to really make her, you know, see meta play. Again, all these buffs are good, and it's great that they're doing this. The cards will feel less bad, and they'll go from like tier 5 to tier 4 or tier 4 to tier 3. But in terms of evaluating like meta impacts, like ranked meta stuff, a lot of these buffs aren't really going to change much, right? Like, pretty much any of these. Yeah, none of the champion buffs I think are really going to change a ton. Where some of the buffs might actually make changes are the Targon ones and some of the dragon ones, like Solari Priestess, Ravoon, and yeah, Rune Dragon Guard. You might be able to run Rune Dragon Guard without Targon, by the way. Although, because some of the Targon Dragons and some of the other Targon cards are doing well, I think overall, like, you'll still be wanting to run the Targon cards there. And Darkness does get a little bit better with Desanata. The thing to keep in mind is that with some of the top decks coming down, with Draven, like every Draven deck coming down, because the Draven nerf was pretty notable, and with, you know, Nami decks coming down, and with most Bandle City decks coming down at least a bit, some of them quite a bit, what that means is like any deck that was previously like tier 2 or tier 3 that is getting not changed or a little bit of support is relatively getting a lot better, right? So we look at decks like Dragons, like it's not just because Dragons are getting some support, it's also because some things at the top are getting nerfed, right? And I want to point to Darkness too, like Des and Ada. This is a pretty noticeable change, I think. Like, this card feels a lot better now. But the big thing is, like, some of the top decks are coming down, and a Darkness deck, which was like, you know, tier 2, tier 3, somewhere like in that range, is something that should be coming up in relation, right? Like, because it's all relative. The big thing, usually the big patch winners are like the top decks that didn't really get nerfed. And overall, I mean, Bandle Tree is still looking like Bandle Tree basically didn't get nerfed at all, right? Like Bandle Burn, like here, let me pull up the Bandle style burn. Let's just head over to swimstream.com. So this is bad example because this is pretty outdated, but a lot of the decks haven't really changed. And Bandle Burn is one of them that I can just pull up now. This kind of deck hasn't really changed a ton, right? And you know, it's known, it's like a deck that was actually like basically created on Reddit, and it outperformed everything. Like, it was a pretty nuts deck. It came out really strong, and basically nothing in here is getting nerfed except for Stone Stackers is getting a minor nerf, and Tenor of Terror is getting a noticeable nerf for sure. But like, this is still going to be a tier 1 deck, probably. Tenor got pretty hard nerfed. Yeah, Tenor's nerf was pretty hard. For sure. But overall, like, this is still probably going to end up being like a tier 1 deck. And then we've got like these kinds of Bandle versions. Again, the website, I'm just pulling it up now. It is pretty outdated right now. For those of you guys who, you know, might not know, I haven't played this game in like 3 weeks. So I've taken a bit of a break. I will come back pretty soon, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, as you can see, last updated 3 weeks ago. And this kind of style of deck, and there's a lot of different ways to build it, but this kind of style of deck is still going to be pretty good. Ones that are built more around the idea of like Mayor, Telescope, Swarm. Obviously, Relentless Pursuit will have to come down because the nerf to it was pretty massive, but Poppy decks in general are still going to be good. Bandle, Swarm, aggro decks are still going to be good. If anything, Bandle is kind of worse at like the more controlling game plan because they still have Poppy, and Poppy is still a very, very valuable option. Aggro Bandle City deck is carried by the Mayor Mana Cheat. Yeah, and Mayor is still untouched. So for the most part, we're still going to see a lot of like Bandle dominance at the top. I do think in terms of low-key things that are coming up, I want to point to, yeah, mostly Dragons, some Targon stuff, and maybe Darkness, actually. Like, Darkness, I don't know if it'll be like tier 1, but it definitely is looking like something that is getting a bit of a bump from this. Okay, so now that we've kind of like talked about, you know, meta and where things are at, I want to go ahead and actually like read the actual post, right? I feel like these are pretty important because we want to get an idea of like where things are going in the future. I gotta rush to do the balance changes first, but these are still important, and I want to come back to these later. This patch kicks off the Between Worlds ranked season, and with it comes a major update to live balance, a variety of card updates, and some quality of life changes and bug fixes. I want to know when the next card release is going to be, because I thought the next card release, I thought we'd be in like reveal season right now because of seasonals, and it looks like that's getting delayed. As promised back at the launch of Beyond the Bandlewood, we've got quite a few card updates this patch. Before we jump into that though, we wanted to share an update on the overall philosophy and targets for live balance moving forward. Fairly long TLDR, live balance updates are important to improve LoR's overall player experience, and so moving forward, expect to see regularly occurring scheduled card updates targeted towards impacting the meta, nerfing clear overperformers, buff underperformance, and generally improving deck diversity. These updates will be staggered in between expansion releases. Okay, so I mean, this is nice that they're saying this. Right now, something that we've been talking about a lot in the LoR community is that it's a little ridiculous that it's been 4 months since we've had a balance change, right? Last balance change we had was in June, and it was a big one. It was impactful. It was great. But for the most part, we were kind of wondering if like they would stick with these like literal tri-annual balance updates, or whether we would get, you know, something a little bit more frequent. And they seem to at least be indicating that they're, yeah, regularly occurring is hopefully more than 3 times a year. I don't agree with that. How is Poppy not a clear overperformer? Honestly, with a lot of balance changes, we'll have to kind of see how things shape up meta-wise. But I will say, like, looking at these balance changes, I'll be very clear. I think I did like the big balance patch that we got before. The one we got 4 months ago, the huge one with like 40 changes, I think that was the best balance patch Runeterra has ever had. It was really amazing. And pretty much every change was like impactful and I agreed with. For the most part, this one does feel like a lot of just like small changes that don't feel like, especially the buff section, I don't think there's really gonna be a lot you can do with some of these buffs, right? Like, you know, I mean, yeah, there's dragons and yeah, there's like some Targon stuff, but for the most part, like these champion buffs are very, very low impact. They're just like, you know, a lot of these balance changes are just kind of like tiptoeing closer to the edge, right? Like they're looking at Echo and they're like, okay, it's definitely not going to make him too strong to make him 4, so let's make him 4. And they're looking at Renekton and Lux, and these are very safe changes, but I think ultimately they're going to be kind of inconsequential as a result. The card updates in this patch were built using our updated philosophy, so you can expect something similar in scope and priority in the upcoming balance patches as well. Okay, what's a live balance philosophy? Okay, for LoR gameplay team, our live balance philosophy is a set of principles that determine what could or should be changed, when it should happen, why we do it. It's a live balance philosophy because these changes are largely determined by data from gameplay on the live server, on top of surveys, direct player feedback, and our gameplay analysis team. A team that playtests and advises on various aspects of cards and overall balance considerations before they go live to player. Okay, so they're basically saying this is very devil-driven. Data-driven. Sorry, I confused the sentence I was gonna say with the sentence that I was saying in the middle of that sentence. The sentence I was gonna say after that is, let me go ahead and play devil's advocate. Okay, so here's the problem with that, which is what you're looking at right now. So the Reddit deck, Ziggs Poppy. This deck was this deck was posted to Reddit about like a week or 2 after the expansion, and it blew up. This is like one of the most successful and prolific decks of all time, and you've probably seen it a lot, especially at like middling ranks, but it's present at all ranks. Not only does it have the highest win rate, I think in terms of game design, it's really easy to point to win rate, especially community likes to overrepresent win rate and overrate win rate. Play rate, let's look at the matches. Take a look at this number. This is a big fucking number, guys. Like, this is pretty insane. This is pretty ridiculous. And keep in mind, this is a deck that got, I think, pretty lightly touched. The tenor of Terra nerf is impactful, and the Stone Stackers, it will definitely be like a little bit of a hit. Like the Stone Stackers did nerf it a bit, but overall this is still going to be a very powerful deck. I'm concerned that even with the tenor nerf, this deck is still going to be pretty rampant for sure. And of course, Poppy, of course, being kind of like the biggest culprit. Like a lot of people are saying like Poppy could be taking down a step, and I do think like a Poppy nerf could have been hit. Like that was a little bit of a miss. I was that's kind of like where I'm at right now with a lot of these things. I like to like reserve judgment until after I've like played on the patch, but that's just kind of like my initial impressions and like what I'm thinking about moving forward. Organizing our processes for refining, and yeah, regularly scheduled balance patches are hitting between expansion releases. We avoid significant balance patches immediately upon an expansion's release, since new card releases will inherently impact the existing meta, and it can take time for things to develop and settle. Lead to stable meta. Moving forward, we hope that new set of processes and priorities will adjust the feeling of steel meta and any decks that are brave new metrics quickly, rather than having to wait months. Yeah, I mean, I think this is fair for sure, especially because like sometimes new stuff is launched a little too hot, you know, a little too fuego. In this case, let's take a look at the releases. Let's look at the schedule. So October, we got the seasonal tournament, the Battle Academia skins. Oh, I didn't know they were putting Battle Academia skins. November is the major PvE expansion. Now, I don't know anything about that, but for me, that speaks to me in some really major ways. You guys know, I've had a really good time lately doing all this like form of like challenge run style content. I'm hoping that the major PvE expansion will be something that changes that in a pretty major way. They're already in the game. This is the one that was already added? Are you guys serious? I thought it was something else. Because I know people were talking about, like, PvE expansion happening sooner. For those of you guys who don't know, yeah, I mean, I'm still on my hiatus. Oh, the skins are already in the game. Okay, I was confused for a second. Yeah, because I heard the major PvE expansion was happening sometime soon, but it looks like it will be in November. Okay. New themed event. And I guess the event will be probably themed Arcane? Maybe. I will say, you know, for those of you guys who are keeping notes on the Arcane release, I'm looking forward to it. I plan on watching Arcane. It looks pretty cool, right? Like, I'm not usually into these kinds of things, but Riot does a really, really good job at these things. Move mic a little closer. Oh, am I a little quiet? All right. But yeah, basically, I'm looking forward to the major PvE expansion. For me, who knows what this entails? I don't know. But this could be a major game changer. Like, if this is a really big PvE expansion, if it's what I've been kind of like waiting for and what I've been looking for, I could see myself diving really deep into this. Like, I could see myself just doing PvE challenge runs and a lot of like fun stuff for a very long time before I reemerge. So this I'm very hopeful for. I do want to clarify, like last time I got my hopes up, we just got Saltwater Scourge, and I think they're still adding a lot of stuff to Saltwater Scourge, but it, you know, they didn't really launch with a lot, so I'm still holding out. But I really hope that the PvE expansion delivers as to what I'm hoping for, because I think this might be just absolutely massive for what I enjoy. New expansion is going to happen in December, and that's the Magical Misadventures, which is going to be... Which champions are we going to get then? I think that's... isn't that Yuumi? I mean, we don't know for sure, but we speculated that Yuumi was going to be one of the ones. And that, yeah, we're going to have to wait 2 months until the new expansion. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. So, yeah, for the most part, they're just talking about, like, the life balance philosophy and just keeping us up to date on that. Makes a lot of sense. And, yeah, you'll see a balance patch every other month. Okay, interesting. And the next live balance patch is scheduled for January. Okay, perfect. So, for the most part, yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty fair. It's pretty reasonable. It's pretty much what we expected. Like, they're just tweaking a lot of the top things, making sure that we know that there's going to be a balance patch in 3 months. And you know, moving forward, it'll be every other month, so every 2 months, which is a pretty reasonable rate. Like, that's pretty much what we expect. It's going to be Nunu, Nar, and Yuumi. Nunu. I don't think Nunu is going to be in this one, right? And yeah, overall, I don't think any of this is kind of reiterating a little bit more closely what we were talking about before with balance philosophy. They're just trying to make sure there's better region diversity, quality of life for some underplayed champions and archetypes, and experiment, encourage experimentation. Tone down some cards that are overly impactful. I think for the most part, the thing that I would say I feel like I would like them to focus a little bit on is promoting gameplay that feels like very different or very divergent. Like, region diversity is nice, but it's really important that champions that feel like they're promoting like different styles of gameplay are being prioritized, right? Like, right now in the game, there's not a lot of like heavy control. A lot of like the failure stuff has been nerfed out for a while. Even like Shadow Well's control doesn't really work. A lot of it is just kind of like tempo driven, and mid-range metas are nice. But we've kind of like been moving more and more away from a mid-range meta as we've like had this meta be more refined and more built around stuff like Burn and stuff like Scion. And overall, I think I would like to see more of a focus on enabling unique strategies. Like, I feel like, I mean, the Lux change, for example, I would have loved to see a larger change here, because this kind of thing, like, Lux is the kind of card that could represent a really unique playstyle for her region. Like, she's very different from how Demacia normally plays, and I think like her being a bit more powerful or having a bit more support would be pretty great. But I don't expect the 5 costs to really impact her in enough of a reasonable way to make her like any sort of competitive, I would say. So I would have liked to see some kind of like stronger buffs of those kind, right? Braum, I'm fine with them keeping Braum weak because like by definition he's almost inherently unbalanceable. I don't want to get into this too much, but basically the reason Braum can't really be competitive is because his floor for value at a low player rank is way too high. Like, Braum is actually dominating new player scene. For those of you guys who are like, well, Braum's weak, they should buff him. The way that Braum works, very slow, grindy value card that requires coordination and knowledge to shut down. They can't really make this card competitive because he'll be too good at low ranks. Like, this card has a design that makes him kind of fundamentally non-competitive, and that's okay. And there's not really anything they can do about that. They don't need Braum to be making waves in the high level rank, but cards like Lux and even cards like Renekton, I think, definitely have that ability, right? Same with Katarina. Yeah, Katarina's the same way, by the way. You know, Katarina in her current design can't really be good, or else she'd be too good. So that's another example of that. But yeah, I'd love to see changes that were a little bit more like bold in terms of buffs. That's one of the reasons I really like the last balance patch we got 4 months ago, because that one had some bold buffs that shook things up a lot more. But overall, yeah, I mean, that's my initial impressions of all the balance changes. It's looking overall, I mean, I'm glad they did a balance change. It's pretty much like, I guess, average in terms of what I expected. You know, I would have liked to see some bigger changes, but it's really nice that we're getting something that's going to be shaking up the meta, right? Because, you know, things are definitely a little bit stale right now. And for me personally, I am most excited by a really wide margin for this PvE expansion over here. Like, that's, I mean, fingers crossed. I hope this delivers, but I can't help but feel really excited, and hopefully that will be something that's just like really, really huge and a ton of content that's fleshed out. Okay. What do you guys think?